So, hello again in another exciting tutorial about Unity and Playmaker with me, Romi Fauzi. And in this 7th episode of our 3D shoot 'em up tutorial series, we are going to create a player health system. So, let's get into it. Okay, first, I have already prepared a sprite, an object, an image that is basically look like this. I cannot zoom it, but it's basically a stroke of a circle, a white circle. So we are going to use that as our health bar. Okay, next we are going to create a new image, a UI image. So just select the Sci-Fi Fighter AK5 and right click, and then go to UI, press image. Basically it will create a new canvas image and it will reside outside of our Sci-Fi Fighter AK5 object. So I'm going to drag this canvas as our Sci-Fi Fighter child object, and then change our canvas render mode to a world space and pick our camera here. Now if we go to our scene here and we see it, our canvas size will be very big here. So let's change our canvas size, maybe change it around 10 by 10 and high, and reset all of the X position, Y and Z position to 0, and press F to focus back to our canvas middle. And this is still too big, so I'm going to make this maybe around 4 by 4. And let's rotate our canvas on the x-axis to 90 degrees, so it will align with our shape rotation. Select the image and change this value to around 4 also by 4, and it will resize as big as our ship. And then I'm going to choose our source image here, sprite, and I'm going to choose our health bar. Now I'm going to make this slightly bigger than our ship, so change to 5 by 5. Okay, and then I'm going to change the color to around greenish color here, and change its alpha to around 120, or maybe more than that, 150. And if we go to our game screen, we can see a slide of our color. Make it, yeah, 150 should be okay. Okay, go back to our scene here and change, rename the image to health bar. Okay, so next we are going to change the image type to a field, and I'm going to set the fill method to radial 360 and change the fill origin to top. And with this fill amount we can change the value, the fill amount, from 1 to 0. Okay, so this will be acting as our health indicator. And go to our Sci-Fi Fighter object, and in the Playmaker I'm going to create a new FSM. So add FSM to the Sci-Fi Fighter AK5, rename the FSM to AK5 damage system, and under the state we are going to rename the first state wait enemy trigger. Add a trigger event and select as the collider tag the enemy, and create a new event, hit by enemy. Add the transition and send that transition to our send event here. Create a new state, and we are going to subtract our life. So subtract health, and connect this to our subtract health. Add a finish transition, go back to our enemy trigger. Under subtract health we are going to use a float subtract, and then we are going to create a new variable, player health, and subtract by 1, and we are going to change our player health to a value of 10. So we have 10 chances for hitting the enemy before our ships gets destroyed. And we are going to create a new float, duplicate this float here, float subtract. So I'm going to use a set float value, and then I'm going to create a new variable also. I'm going to name this normalized health. What is normalized health is basically, this normal health is basically a same value as our player health, but it gets divided by the maximum health possible by 10. So we get the normalized value from 0 to 1 to the maximum value. So we are going to set this normalized health from our player health, and then we are going to divide this. Divide, and for the float variable I'm going to pick normalized health and divide by 10. Okay, so once we have finished this, we have the normalized value, and now we are going to lock our FSM so we can see this FSM and still seeing this FSM when we select other object. And for the health bar, I'm going to drag this image to our second state here, and I'm going to set the property, and I'm going to pick the fill amount, and I'm going to set this fill amount to our normalized health value. Okay, now let's save the scene and try this, see if it's working or not. As you can see, our health is subtract. We can see our bar is getting subtract when hitting the enemy, and now we need an effect when the enemy hits our ship. So I'm going to disable the lock, and I'm going to select the fighter low prefab here, but with the prefab I mean with the prefab sign over here. So this is the master, and I'm going to copy this trigger event and set the second trigger event to player, and I'm going to disable set the blaster store collider to none, back to none. And now we can see this is the first one, I think, and the second one is the fighter low prefab B. So I'm going to go to our enemy lives and copy the trigger event again, select this to player, and this is set to none. Okay, let's save it, make sure cross check again. Okay, this is also player. So, and by doing this, when the enemy ship hits the player, it will automatically get hit and it gets destroyed, and it will create also an explosion effect. So it's all already been done automatically by our FSM setup before. So okay, something's wrong. Okay, now we have set this, but under our fighter low prefab, we can see that this edit instance, and okay, this is already working, but maybe I think our sci-fi fighter, okay, so we haven't tagged our sci-fi fighter as a player. So let's do that. Set the sci-fi fighter AK5 on our scene to the tag to player, and save it again. Let's try this. Okay, yeah, as you can see, we have a nice explosion effect when we are hitting the enemy, and there you go. So now we need to create a couple of conditions. I'm going to create a new color variable, and I'm going to name this a critical health. So I want to create an effect where when our health is critical, it will change to a reddish color with the same alpha value of 150. And here we are going to create a float compare. So under float compare, we are going to compare the player health with a smaller value. So let's say for trying, I'm going to create a bigger number, 7, and if this is less than 7, we are going to send a new event. So create new event here, and then change health color, and I'm going to add that transition change health color here, and then create a new state change color, connect this state here, and we are going to lock the FSM again and select our health bar and drag the image script here to our state and set the property to a color, and select color, and for the store color we choose our critical health variable color. And after this we can add a new transition finish and go back to our first state. I'm going to test this later, but I'm going to create a dying state. So we create a new state, and this is a destroyed, and I'm going to add a new transition. So I'm going to create a new event, destroy, add a destroy transition, and connect this to destroy. So here I'm going to create a new float compare. So I'm going to copy this float compare, and we have two same float compare, but I'm going to modify the first one. So I'm going to make sure the first one is for comparing when the player health is 0. So change the second float to 0, and if it's equal, I'm going to destroy, or if it's less than, also I'm going to destroy this to go to the destroy event transition, and add a bit tolerance around 0.1 because this is a float. The number can be not as precise as integer, so we need to add a bit tolerance when we're comparing a float value. Okay, so now under destroy, I'm going first to use an enable FSM, and I'm going to pick another of this sci-fi fighter AK5 FSM, the movement, and I'm going to disable the movement so we cannot control it again. And then I'm going to create an object, create an object. Oh, I think this is later. I'm going to select our sci-fi fighter AK5 and drag the rigid body component here, and set the property of our use gravity, and I'm going to create a new variable, enable, name this enable gravity, and on our created new gravity we are going to set the value to true. So the use gravity will gets enabled, and the ship, our sci-fi fighter, will falls down to the sea. And then I'm going to add a wait event, maybe wait for around 1.5 seconds before we create an explosion. So, and then add new state, add a finish transition on our destroyed state, and under wait we are going to send this to our finished state and connect this to the last state here. And here I'm going to name this create explosion, and then we can add a create object over here. Under game object, select our explosion prefabs, and for the spawn point I'm going to select the sci-fi fighter AK5 from our scene tabs here. So let's search for it, this one here, and then I'm going to destroy self. Okay, put this below the create object so explosion gets created first. I'm going to save this, and let's try this. I'm going to hit every enemy, and as you can see our health color is changed. Oh, so we still have okay, in order to test this I'm going to decrease our player health value to 5 so we can see if this destroy state are working or not. So let's subtract this. Okay, There you go, our ships gets destroyed. So let's try this once again. I'm going to hit this to the couple ship over here, and then I'm going to wait for the last one and then gets hit with the last one. So one thing I have to check, because the subtract is somehow it's not working correctly. So player head is subtract by value of 1, get 4, and this is okay. Okay, let's change this player head back to a smaller value, maybe around 4, and change our health back to 10. And we have 5 fighter over here, and we also have 5 fighter. Okay. Let's try once again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 4. Okay. Maybe that's a problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Somehow the enemy doesn't spawning correctly, so I'll just let it, and I'll try to find the problems before. But basically our damage system is already working. So I think this concludes our episode on creating the player health. And as you can see, it's very simple using Playmaker. So I hope you like this episodes, and if you like this, please subscribe. Stay tuned for another episode. Thanks a lot for watching. See ya.